Hi, this is part 2 of the demonstration of the snowman, and this will be the background. What I'm going to do is start using some masking fluid and my bar soap to lubricate the brush in some of the pine needles. So I'm using, again, the Winsor & Newton masking fluid. I'm going to tap off a little extra and just put some highlights in the pine branches. And you can decide the amount of contrast you want and put as much of the masking fluid as you'd like. Some people don't like using masking fluid at all, and sometimes I think it's kind of nice for sparkle. Okay, I'll put my masking away and tighten it up. And then in the meantime, let that dry. I'm looking at my image and I could see that there's some real darks in here, and so I'm gonna have to kind of figure out what is the base color underneath all of this green. And I do see some cobalt blue, so I'm gonna make that decision to kind of wet things down with a little bit of cobalt blue. Okay, getting started. So that'll be my undercolor, and it's cool. And because I'm left-handed, I work from the right side to the left side. And if you are right-handed, work from the left to the right. And that keeps you from getting your hand stuck right in the middle of your work. I'm also drawing with my brush. And I'm holding my image, my little tablet here. Work around the arm. And I'll stop at that point. I probably would do at least half of the painting with the blue, but because this is a demonstration and we don't want it to be too lengthy, you can fill the rest in yourself. Okay, so I'm going to start now coming up with a green. And the green I'm going to take was the original green I used in the snowman, which is phthalo green shade. It's a Winsor & Newton color. And it's a beautiful transparent green. I also want to dull that color down. So I'm going to take ultramarine blue, French ultramarine, and it's, again, a Winsor & Newton that I'm using for this. And I'm going to take a little bit of Winsor Violet to dull it. So that's a beautiful combination. Winsor Violet mixed with phthalo green shade. And the paper is pretty wet, and I'm using a number 10 brush. Now I don't want to draw every needle on the tree. I'm just getting the impression of what the pine looks like. And again, remember that the color will dry way lighter than you think it looks beautiful when it's wet, but when you go to dry it, it lightens up considerably. And that being just the nature of watercolor. And I hold my brush vertically to create these needly shapes. And I want to darken that up a little bit more since it's wet. And this time I'm going to go back to my Payne's Gray, which I used in the front of the painting, in the snowman portion of the painting. So puddle some of that Payne's Gray in it, working wet into wet. And I think I'll reduce my brush size, and this is a number 10. I think the other one, it was a 12. And I'm going to take sap green and mix it in the soup that I had already mixed up here. So I'm just gonna make it more green by adding sap. Indicate needles. I hope you can see with my arm in this position. There's a lot of yellow in the sap green. And again, you want to work around the form, not to lose the body of your snowman. And I think I'm going to add some cobalt blue straight up. To draw in some of the needles. Yeah, it's really too wet and it's all blurring together. So just kind of experiment with it a little bit. And I'm added Payne's Gray to darken this up a little. You notice that I'm going over the edge out here on the top. And it's because I have the tape all the way set up at the edge. So that really gives me a frame. And when you're putting your tape down, you want to make sure that that's crimped down onto the paper. With Arches paper, that will not come peel off, and it won't crawl under if you press it down hard. It doesn't rip the paper. And as the paper starts drying, I'm able to get a straighter line. But when it's really soggy, you can't do that. And I think that looks nice, and I'll leave that alone. Maybe add a few more details in it. And I would move along the rest of the painting. I have a, it's Hooker's green mixed in with the Payne's gray, and that will give me a nice like a pine needle look. And I'm pretty pleased with that. And as it dries, you can start getting more refinement on it, but at this point it's too soggy. So you want it wet into wet to get a looser look. But if you want it to be tighter or more refined, then it has to dry up a little bit. And in my image, there's a lot of blue around the bottom of the snowman. And I'm going to use a little bit of cobalt and some manganese in that area. Manganese is a wonderful blue. It's like a crystal color. And I'm puddling some of that color up here. And to give that area a little bit of a snowier look, I'm going to put a bit of table salt. And that'll absorb nicely. Don't dry it with a blow dryer though, because that'll stop it from absorbing. The salt particles absorb the paint. And I think I'll add a little bit, pardon me, a little bit more of the salt. and let that absorb. If your paper is dry, the salt will not absorb at all. And so here you could start seeing the snowflake design that's starting to take place as the salt is picking up. Another technique for scraping that you can try using is when you see a paintbrush with a foot on it. And that's what they call this. It's a footed brush. And sometimes you can scrape out designs. A credit card, sometimes the edge of a credit card or something plastic will do the same thing. So you can get the feeling of pine needles. So that's kind of an experimental type of a technique. And I'll finish the rest of this and and then you can watch it as it's in fast time.